Marty, we've got to go back to the Terminus systems. On Future Please, heinous trip at Warp 5. My name is Joseph.
I'm your co-host, Peter.
All right, to the point. What did we watch this week?
we just went from talking about a great time travel episode of Strange New Worlds to the fucking toxic fumes of salmonella chicken set ablaze that was Subspace Rhapsody, and now I have a cat somehow stuck in my house, potentially peeing in my garage.
You've had a whole ass evening, and now we're going to cap it off by talking about a mid-level Enterprise episode.
Now, luckily, there's a whole website dedicated to this. We watched season 3, episode 21. Is it E2 or E squared? That has to be E squared.
E squared. Yeah.
First aired May 5th, 2004, day after my birthday. It's a Taurus episode. And by Mike Sussman, directed by Roxanne Dawson. Interesting. You know, I didn't pick on any Dawsisms.
I mean, there was a lot of relationship stuff in this.
Yeah, but nobody slathered in grease. Nobody getting hit. Did someone get hit by a pipe? No.
They can't all become episodes, right? Like, it's all gone. All the comes
what do you mean?
Now.
It is an episode. It didn't have to be. Oh, B space CUM episodes. Yes. Yes, of course.
This is... I don't want to say it's bad. It's not bad. It just is a little simple, a little one note, kind of very predictable. And after 3 weeks in a row of just solid bangers combined with what's to come, which is more solid bangers, it's like, oh yeah, this is kind of a little pit stop back into mediocrity real quick.
Disagree.
Oh, did you love it or did you hate it?
I didn't love it, but this is a solid ass episode, man. All right. And for Enterprise, which lest we not forget season poo, I would take this episode over probably almost anything out of like the first 2 seasons. It's
okay, fair enough. We're grading on a curve, definitely. It's great,
and that's how we have to do these fucking things. Like we're not watching the show in a vacuum. You know, this isn't Voyager where every episode is a nation unto itself. Like there's continuity. We've sat through a lot of these. Cool shit happens. There's a lot of neat what if. There's cool character introspection by way of seeing where lives progress, and in to Paul's case, an opportunity to just talk to yourself. It's not edge of my seat like holy shit, wow. But for an episode of Enterprise that I went into based on the previous capsule, expecting this to be the doppelganger people, or a situation where there is an alien influencer that is making them hallucinate and think that they're seeing double, like this is cool. The alien bad guys don't even get fucking like view screen time because the entire episode is based on the life and the failures of the Starship Enterprise.
Yeah, the bad guys are just thugs and spaceships. They're gonna shoot you. I think the reason why I'm colder on this is something you don't know about, which is this is a total ripoff of the DS9 episode. And when I say a total ripoff, I mean right down to there's one member of the crew left from the ancestor crew members that eventually changes the course of what's going to happen as a consequence of their interference. Like microbeat for microbeat, this is Grand Theft DS9. And so I just found it very uninteresting in terms of the plot. But the personal kind of growth character stuff was still quite compelling. I really thought that there was something that this still added to the continuity of watching, even though it's just completely ripped off of DS9. They just stole a plot they already did.
Did you get a chance to read the Memory Alpha?
Not really. We were jamming a lot of Star Trek so that we could talk about Strange New Worlds. So there's a lot of there's deleted scenes. That's interesting. We hadn't seen that in a second. I remember the deleted scenes was a big part of our look at the end of season 2, The Expanse, because of the Hoshi stuff and all of that. This is the first time I've seen those in a while. And it looks like it's a fleshed out scene between Tucker and his son, and then Archer talking to Phlox about, their sick bay, and then Phlox talking about all the kids he had. Okay.
Original story pitched for this by Sussman is that it's actually the Columbia after all. It's the NX-02, and that they used
Oh, okay.
Xindi boom tube to get out there. They had the same issue, and the Columbia is staffed by a generational crew that would be hard set to win at all costs, and this is what we've been bred for. In that, I think it would have been really interesting with some shades almost potentially of God, what was the Voyager with the not the Prometheus,
The
the
Equinox.
Equinox.
Well, it says it right here, actually, now that I'm looking at the memory alpha. Sussman was asked to revise the story, making Enterprise travel into the past and thus have the crew meet themselves and their own descendants, much as the Defiant crew had done in Children of Time. And Sussman pointed that out and was told, doesn't matter. We don't care. We're just going to steal it.
I'm sorry. Did you not just watch Doctor's Orders /1? Since when do we, in this writer's room, not just take a script of Star Trek, Control F certain characters' names like the captain or the title, and just replace with the Enterprise appropriate equivalent, or Voyager? I mean, this cannibalism is like the third rule of Star Trek.
I'm just wondering if this is very much in here. Oh, and here it says at the end. Never mind. I don't even have to speculate. The end of that little note that talks about how Sussman knew this was fucking plagiarized as shit from the start. This information was provided by Mike Sussman. It is not footnoted. It's just in the notes here. Like, Mike Sussman edited the memory alpha. I guarantee you himself to say, yes, I know this was stolen. I fucking told Rick Berman, and he did not fucking care. Stop asking me about it.
How amazing. There's so many ways to communicate with fans or people that consume your media. You can make tweets, right?
Yeah.
Really just have a dialogue there. You can make your own podcast. You can have fucking YouTube clips like that guy that made the Fallout games where you're talking to your fans. This might be the most alpha level nerd to just be like, there's people out there who want to communicate with me. They're never going to follow me on Twitter, and they're probably not paying to see my fucking content behind Robbie and fucking Garrett's premium tier subscription on Delta Flyer, but they're going to read these fucking memory alphas, and I will go directly to the source, and I will speak to God myself, and I will plead my case at the gates of St. Peter and let it be written for all time and for all eyes that are going to ever care about this sort of thing. That is
right. I mean, it worked, right? We just pointed out, like, okay, Mike Sussman, not a plagiarist. He fucking knew.
Take the time out of your day. Fucking 20 years later, I'm gonna sit down with this fucking Wikipedia. I'm gonna what is Mike Sussman doing right now that he's got the time in his day to make a memory alpha user account and edit that. I like Sussman. I like his work, and the fact that he's willing to put the time in to fucking amend his own body of works memory alpha page. How much of this other stuff is here? Because this is a long entry. I feel bad that I watched Subspace Rhapsody instead of actually reading this episode entry. No, I like this episode, man. And we open up with a slow panning shot with a bunch of fucking, it looks like a garage sale of crap littered about as we get the big reveal that somehow Palpatine has returned.
I mean, if you're going to put someone in old age makeup, it might as well be so, like, over the top, like, ridiculous old age makeup that, like, the weirdness of it kind of leans in. So, yeah, it's definitely Jolene Blaylock. It's definitely T'Pol, but it's Crypt Keeper T'Pol.
It's if Palpatine had sex with Yoda, and this is the crusty, old, jittery, milky-eyed ghoul that was left over. That's still, after a couple beers and that spandex suit
You can straighten out that scoliosis. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
This elderly Vulcan lady is talking to I actually kind of looked a lot like Dean Stockwell. What oddly, kind of
Yes,
with that
that's
gray
what I
hair.
was looking for.
Yeah,
What else has this
yeah.
guy been in?
This actor's David Andrews. He was
Stargate?
Jordan. He was Jordan Cresswell on Jag. He was in Apollo 13. He was in Terminator 3. Oh, I'm sorry. This man had a career. I apologize.
Terminator 3. Is it that? Terminator 3, is that the one with the Terminatrix?
Yes.
What was he in that?
He
Oh,
was
he's the Skynet's dad. That's what I know him from. He's the
General Brewster.
Yeah, he's like the fucking dude that basically he puts Skynet online.
This guy plays military authority figure in stuff to this day.
Listen, you don't have that hair without being, the man.
He was on For All Mankind. He was on The Boys. He was in Watchmen. This man's still doing shit. Yeah.
What's he in?
He's just like showed up for like an episode or so.
What's he in For All Mankind?
Admiral Scott Ukin. It's like second episode. He's probably like a background character.
Yeah,
or
I
something.
mean he's gonna work with 50s era Command Authority, and then what else did you say he was in? Expanse?
He was in The Boys.
Was he in The Boys?
He was a Senator Calhoun.
Yeah, he could be a space. He could be a Texan, a real Texan.
Yeah, space tech. He could be a senatorial Texan. Mm-hmm. He was
not the kind of weak-willed senators that turn into water after being abducted by mutants. This guy, he's going to stick to his good.
He's not Senator Kelly. He's got some strength.
You're not going to see this guy running across a flight deck full of acid, not being shot at by John Archer.
Point is, this actor David Andrews, who plays this other Vulcan, he's done things. He's got experience. He actually does a great job in this episode, in my opinion.
I think he conveys more perceived authority and bigger balls than Archer does, and that actually makes those scenes a little lopsided, that this guy's able to speak with so much more conviction.
He's just a better actor. Sometimes that's what happens, man.
Yeah.
Whoever this guy is, he's failed to stop the Xindi probe. He's not feeling good about that. And Paul tells him, well, then you're going to have to find Jonathan Archer. And so clearly we already kind of know where we're going, which is there's some reason there's a future to Paul and this guy who seems obvious has to be her son based on age and ears.
Based on blonde hair that this clearly Tripp's kid.
What happened here? we're going to find out, I'm sure. And when we get back to the episode, we actually start with current day Trip and T'Pol. And T'Pol's trying to meditate, and Trip shows up and asks for neuropressure, but as a pretense because he's actually kind of reaching out to T'Pol emotionally because he's noticed she's been having problems, which of course she has because she was smoking crack rock for 3 months. And you don't come off the crack rock without feeling bad.
T'Pol, now I see you got the shakes.
Trip's from Florida. He knows what drug use looks like.
My great-grandpa chewed another man's face off under an overpass while high on bath salts, and while Trillium D isn't exactly a bath salt,
people are still doing crocodile in the 23rd century.
Crocodile,
who knew?
There's a fucking narcotic of the week I haven't heard of in a while.
But in genuineness, he comes to her. He knows he's trying to reach out. Like, it's definitely playing him as I'm not just trying to get laid. I actually am caring about you. But Paul is not ready to deal with that.
This is an interesting way to go back to their relationship because the last time we saw them was Trip kicking a empty gasoline can down the hallway. Degra gave him power cells to try and help repair the damage after the fight with the reptilians. And him kind of having to come to terms and say, turns out I'm pissed about my sister dying after all. I'm not okay. These emotions are fucking me up. You guys are lucky. You Vulcans are lucky you don't have emotions. And then she's like, no, you're lucky that, you don't have to smoke rock to get these feelings. So him cycling back around and being like, right, I've chilled out now. Turns out you're kind of fucked up. Like, why doesn't he call out the fact and be like, when we thought that Archer was dead, when he went on the suicide run and you were the boss and you were basically completely worthless and very clearly freaking out, like, you are fundamentally fucked. And
Well, because I think he's trying to take a softer approach because she just did help him. It makes sense that, like you said, he's chilled out and he's like, okay, well, to Paul, really seems like she's struggling. Like she's out of sorts. I see it.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go talk to her. Like that's what I think I should do. Like we're certainly more than friends at this point. Like I want to reach out. I don't know what else to do. And the defensive sort of pushing away that Paul is doing makes a lot of sense in context of the journey she's on, right? Like she is very uncomfortable with where she's wound up as a consequence of smoking the Trillium D. She can no longer regulate away her emotions the way she's used to, and so she wants no contact as much as possible. She's become a hermit. She's staying in her quarters. It's where she takes her meals. She just works and comes back and does not talk to anybody. And it makes sense if you're like, okay, I need to center myself. I got to get the job done. I cannot afford to care about anything right now. And then, like, the one guy you care about the most, obviously, you just were having crazy sex dreams about him, shows up, and you're like, I got to get him out of here.
Yeah.
I can't afford to
Trip,
break
come
down
on,
right now.
please. I'm trying to pray the feels away.
Yeah, like, and she also can't explain, right? Like, I can't explain to you I smoked a bunch of fucking crack rock. Like, none of us have time right now to deal with that. Like, I know that, so I'm not going to tell you.
Trip, hey, I want to bring in my life, so I'm going to come clean. You remember how we're in this part of space where like anomalies are twisting people's faces off, and like Archer got a brain parasite, and also you almost died, and we had to make a clone of you and then kill the clone to fix your brain because of the space anomalies. But then we've actually got the stuff we could put on the ship to make us immune, but we have to endanger everybody's life to the point where like you almost died and Archer got a brain bug because that stuff's toxic and turns me into like a space zombie. Well, I know it sounds weird, but I've actually been smoking that like drugs. I've been crushing it down and putting it in my mouth. And that's been a thing for like the past 6 months. And as a side effect, I'm going through withdrawal.
Yeah, I don't think you can drop that right now. I think you gotta put a pin in it, and just leave it right where it is.
Now,
Like,
see,
that is a problem. That is future to Paul's problem. It's not present to Paul's problem.
She's a Vulcan. She didn't grow up on Earth. She doesn't know about the secret codes you can put into a conversation. So she wouldn't know better than to say, hey, I want to tell you something, but you got to promise not to get mad. Right? So then by not prefacing it with you got to promise not to get mad, then,
that is the ultimate Uno reverse code of revealing secrets. I was like, I do believe a few minutes ago you made a promise that you would, in fact, not be mad, and I am detecting hostility. Ergo, I do believe you are someone without honor.
Trip, you're just freaking about. You're being a real downer about this. Can you just go back to caring about your dead sister, and we'll just forget this even happened? Interesting relationship dynamics there. Joking aside, and it's funny to spell that all out in like a snarky way, like how ridiculous it is. Yeah, how good of a plot line that has actually been through season 3.
Yeah,
like, it's good
and that
stuff.
It does not, and it's happening isn't as ridiculous as it seems because they set up that T'Pol has this interest, that T'Pol kind of looked into the void as a consequence of her original experience, so she kind of got that first taste.
Mm-hmm.
It was completely unintentional, and combined with the mind meld experience she's had and the weird Vulcan
jazz clubs and everything else.
disease,
They've
jazz club.
used the format of the show where there are meta plots running to put a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there, and as a result, there is a solid stepping stone path to bring us to these ridiculous developments where you're like, this is reasonable and I enjoy watching this happen. So they're not they're not communicating. She kicks him out. Off they go. Let's switch over to the real interesting stuff. My boy Degra.
Yeah, Dagra, the secret best character of the season. He's having a conversation with the other primate who has not been involved, and they're telling him, "Hey, guess what? Guess who's coming to dinner? Like we're having a guest. It's going to be Archer." And he's like, the council will kill him the moment he shows up if you lost your fucking minds." And he and the Arboreal, played by Rick Worthy, are basically telling him, like, listen, we can't explain what we've seen. We feel like we have evidence and context for things that really does matter. And yeah, we're just going to show up with them.
Casting on these guys is perfect. I don't even know where to start with. Like, Degra is like, just talk. Like, he has read the script all the way to the end. He knows how this ends, and at this point he's just trying to like space bar through box text to get people to like a point where he can like
make a decision,
try to like diplomacy them into what he believes is the only reasonable course of action here. Then you've got the other primate who is just completely incredulous. Like, what you did? What? Like, you are talking crazy. Have you been hanging out with like people handing out religious literature on the street? Like, are you in a cult? What the fuck is going on? And then you got Arboreal that's just like basically stoned and chill. Like, nah, man, yeah. Degra's all right. Archer's got friends in the future. We're Space Scoop's gonna fucking kill everybody. And then it's just the two primates getting like more and more not pissed off, but like frantic and energetic and just yelling about the situation. And I'm like, everybody here is right. This is exactly how this situation should play out if you were in the room with two dudes with an awful haircut and a fucking Yeti. Like,
it does come up in this conversation that there have been reports of multiple Earth vessels in the Expanse, which is something that has been mentioned previously. Of course, that finally we have this little plot thread that's been going on for like 6-7 weeks. How many ships are in the Expanse? We've heard all these reports of this Earth ship. Are there more than one? Oh wait, there is. Like, what we find out as Enterprise attempts to enter into this nebula that has the boom tube they're going to use to meet with Degra is another another Earth ship shows up. They're like, what the fuck? Is it the NX-02? Is it the Columbia, as we mentioned? No, it's the NX-01, and it hails them, and it's the guy we've already met. Now, obviously, here's the plot, right? This is clearly them from the past into the future. We're going to find out how this happened as after we get away from this initial encounter. Archer's suspicious. Lauren, the guy who we met at the beginning, who we'll find out is named Lorian, puts him at ease. He comes over to talk, and the past is revealed through black and white flashbacks, which is, yes, what's about to happen is you're about to go into that nebula. When you go into that nebula, you're going to get attacked by faceless thugs. They're going to hit your engines at the wrong time. You're going to hit the boom tube. And what you don't know is that time and space is going to spit you out in the right place, but at the wrong time. In fact, it's 110 years in the past. And because of that, you've got nothing to do but sit and wait until the opportunity comes for you to stop the weapon. That's what's about to happen. I buy it as an explanation for the circumstance.
Here's the weak spot for the episode for me. Because now there's time travel. And as, again, we've just created this video on Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow for Strange New Worlds, which was a great time travel episode. Time travel is incredibly difficult to do well in Star Trek because you and I can sit there as consumers of sci-fi and people with room temperature IQs and come up with like 8,000 different ways you could have done this situation better than what these guys actually do. And first of all, why is Time Zuck not involved in assisting the first version of the Enterprise that goes back in time accidentally. The guy can travel in fucking time, so whether he's going back to Archer's time or 100 years prior, that's like another click on the fucking dial. Who cares? So the fact that
Well, I think they think there is an explanation for that particular element, though, that was in Time Suck's last episode, which is none of this is supposed to be happening at all. This entire event is unknown to us as a consequence of our understanding of time and space. Therefore, we do not know what is supposed to happen. And that makes it impossible for him to intervene on behalf of the Enterprise when they get stuck in this time thing because they're in uncharted waters, which makes the paradox not a paradox because this whole area that they're in, the expanse, it doesn't follow the rules. Like, that's the whole fucking point.
if this was a novel, there would have been a page where Time Zuck shows up and says, there's too many variables here. I cannot help you. We have very strict rules about this. Even with as bad as the situation is, we don't know how this is going to play out until there's a reason why we can't get involved. Right.
Right. There's a range of outcomes, and all of those outcomes are within
Tolerance.
Within tolerance. I can't do anything. Right. There's nothing else. My ability to manipulate is not fine enough to fix this.
Now,
you just have to wait.
That's Time Zuck. The plans that they come up with, which is sit around and do nothing until the probe launches and then try to stop the probe from killing people. Or the correct answer, which is go to Earth, and right as Enterprise leaves to go off in the expanse, then you come out and say, hey, here's what's going on. Or before the actual attack comes and says, hey, here we are. We don't have any better future technology. I'm not fucking Janeway bringing anti-Borg doomsday machines. But there's a bad attack coming. We got to stop it. And also we're going to need to go to war. Or, hey, there's a fucking area in space and people are being manipulated by future time travelers or all sorts of shit, right? Time violations already happening. So them intersecting themselves, like, real weak decision that the game plan is to try to stop the Xindi probe, which they fail because...
Well, they do say, and I think this interferes with your line of thought, they could not leave the expanse. It was impossible for their ship to get out, which we've heard before. So they had, whatever they did had to be in the expanse. So absent your ability to go to Earth and tell them at the right time what's about to happen, they got to stay there and try and, as they decided, intercept the probe to begin with, which would be their first opportunity to act. And then when that fails, that's when they say our next plan is to find Jonathan Archer. Now, you could have said, well, they could have gone right to where they knew they were going to come into the expanse at that time or something. They could have done differently. But I think the idea is like, well, they were trying to stop the probe, failed, and were out of position to catch up to Archer until now. Like,
all right, let's keep going on this. Did the gas wall or whatever the fuck they call it actually exist 100 years ago, or is that a more recent development?
We know that the sphere builders can manipulate time, and whatever they're doing transdimensionally transcends space and time. So it could happen. It could be that it does exist 100 years ago and also exists now. You know? Like, we're messing with the rules, therefore any circumstance can apply like that.
Then why wouldn't the fucking sphere builders have killed the other NX? I'm sorry, the future Enterprise. So, like, again, this is where time travel falls apart. Also, you could say, all right, well, the first probe is going to get out of there. Why wouldn't the the future Enterprise, as soon as Enterprise crosses in, they go, okay, we know what their point of entry is. We know that they've been laying out fucking subspace relays.
I mean,
you could have.
I mean, I said that originally, so that when they tried to go stop the probe, wherever that was so far away from where they knew they were going to be, it was either do one or do the other. So they chose to try and
stop.
All right,
you fuck up the probe, it gets through, it sucks. Enterprise 6 months later comes in, enters the expanse. They could have been waiting there. Well, how long has it been since Enterprise got in? Because it was 6 months to fly out there, right?
I think it was 6 weeks to fly out there, and they've been in it for 6 months.
They could have jumped on the subspace network that Enterprise created when they came in and said, hey, we know exactly where the bad guys are, and send, although the other ships are all fucking garbage. Like, if the NX-01 is the absolute best and Columbia's way out, even if they knew where to strike, I think it's reasonable to say that Earth Starfleet would not be able to send. Although, hey, you tap the fucking Andorians and the Vulcans, hey, please, they're going to blow us up. We know where they're at. Can you please use your Warp 7 ships or whatever the fuck you have and go hammer these fools? It sucks. There's no good way to tell this story where you're plugging all of your plot holes because time travel is garbage. So I think, all things said, based on the past 5 minutes of our conversation, they did a good enough job with
They did good enough.
what it was.
And we do get confirmation, by the way, that Lorian's dad is exactly who you would assume it to be, which is Trip.
Mm-hmm.
And his first officer is Karen Archer, and is a alien of unknown species. Straight up, we get the whole story. Generation, as soon as you realized this was going to take multiple generations to solve, the first children were born shortly thereafter, and they inherited the mission, and then their kids inherited the mission, and that's who's here now.
I do love a good generational ship, right? Ever since, what was the first generational ship we really encountered? Back in Voyager, was it the Harry gets an STD?
There was also I guess that was the first one, because the next one we saw was the Klingons. The Klingons that decided to travel into the Delta Quadrant for religious reasons were multi-generational. Let's see. I think there's probably some other generational family style ships, cities in space situations we're not thinking of from Voyager. There's got to be one. It feels like something that happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure someone can point out to us. Some people have really watched the show and listened to our reviews recently, so if there was, it's more than just the two of Harry getting the space STD and we learn about the Will Riker rule and the Klingon ship, let us know.
Rule.
No banging the aliens.
Yeah.
You don't know, never know when it's going to be that chick from Cheers.
Mm.
Don't you remember? There was that episode of TNG where it's the first contact gone wrong, and part of his Will Riker getting out of it was banging the nurse.
Yeah, that's all it takes. Little D to grease the wheels. Speaking of awkward hookups, the docking port on Enterprise, for them to like pull saucer to saucer and just perfectly alongside each other, all I'm doing is looking at the fucking nacelles, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember what happened the last time Enterprise's nacelles touched another ship. Earth got blown up, right? Real bad design choice. And I would think that anybody reasonable, one would have to come in perpendicular to the other, for a crisscross, pulling right along next to each other. You're asking for trouble.
I did like the way they had the older version of Enterprise was not like super tech, like you said. It's make work stuff, right? It's shit bolted on. Its stuff isn't working quite as well as it used to. They're jury rigging all kinds of things, but it's working, but it's not better.
Take how cool Voyager looked when it'd get neat Borg shit on the outside of the hull. Now try to recreate that with duct tape and cardboard boxes.
Yeah. It's like, what if you had to repair your Ford Mustang with the stuff you found at the scrapyard? And you succeeded, but it looked like shit.
What if you took an NFL linebacker and you showed them at the age of 100 and just they have as many fucking knee braces and arm crickety things as possible so they can just Frankenstein along? So Lorian says, hey, I've got a plan here. We can retrofit your ship with some shit we have, so you can we're going to overclock you so you are able to hit this meeting without using the space butthole shortcut, and it'll be fine. We do it ourselves, except our ship is 100 years old, and our fuel injectors are shot, whereas you are basically brand new for all intents and purposes, and you can do this. So they're like,
Right. Go warp 6.8, which would be a huge improvement over what they're supposed to be able to do.
yeah. I mean, you might as well all be Vulcans at that point. So they begin the plan of let's upgrade the ship with illegal tech from the future.
So they're starting to do that. We do get a scene of Lorian and Trip hanging out. We find out that in fact Trip and T'Pol were married, but unfortunately Trip died relatively young,
He was
and Lorian,
14.
yeah, Lorian was only 14, so he never really got to know his father in his adulthood. Which it's he's the guy playing Lorian's doing a good job of trying to strike the balance where he's being contained on emotional level like you would expect a Vulcan to, but not in a Vulcan way. Like that he kind of had to figure out for himself how to do it rather than have like the discipline kind of introduction to it that like someone like Spock probably did. And it's affecting him, speaking to his father, but he's still very clipped and very, direct and to the point and not overly burdened by emotional response. It's a nice spot. He lands with it. Meanwhile, Archer's getting a tour from his great granddaughter. And we see like kids, we see older people, everyone's in civilian clothes. We've switched to a nice warm yellow lighting. And oh, by the way, there's someone here who's been waiting to see you. And he goes and meets T'Pol.
So Palpatine's like, "Oh, Jonathan, it's good to see you, but I don't really want to talk to you, and I'm not going to talk to Trip either. Here's a pad. My son is full of shit."
Hey, I don't think we've got the time. By the way, just give this, she says, give this to your science officer. She'll understand what it means, which is to say, give it to myself. I'm smart enough to understand what I'm saying to myself. Sure enough. Yeah, it turns out Lorian's idea is got a relatively high chance of failure in these not disclosing.
22%, right?
That is correct.
Archer confronts him, says, "You should have told me. Fuck you. I'm gonna be petulant and rash, and I'm gonna make a decision here with about 26 minutes of having this information in my possession that you've been able to stew over for years, decades.
100 years.
I would have liked, they try to save the fact that Lauren was the replacement for Archer and that Archer tasked him with the mission. I'd have liked him to play the card, be like, this is your plan. You had the time to think this over, and this was your decision. So whatever shit,
Ooh, that would have been good.
whatever shit you've dreamed up in the past 15 minutes on your walk over here, I'm telling you, you came up with this. So fuck you. Go with my plan.
I'd also love to see when they talk about, their own relationship with each other that Archer's unfamiliar with. When Lauren turns the acting juice on and says, like, I swore to my captain on his deathbed I'd complete this mission. You were the man I swore that to. It would have been something else if he said, you picked me to be the captain of Enterprise to succeed you because I was going to be the only crew member who's still going to be alive and know what you said and what you wanted. Because I'm Vulcan. And because of that, I was the only person who could carry this burden of leadership and to complete this mission. And this whole crew and everyone on it, they don't know what I know and they can't know what I know because I'm the only one who heard it from you. Like that was what was missing was that, and yes, this was your plan. This was your idea, was find us a way to not fall into this circumstance again. And so I did.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 100 years finding it, but I did. And now you're telling me it's not good enough? Fuck you, John. What the fuck?
Your orders, my father's burden to avenge the death of his sister. I'm a whole fucking thing, dude. So take your bullshit John Archer snap decision making process and fucking, shove it up your ass. We'll get the Rock back in here. Raw is war is still a big thing right now. We're yeah, this is still, UPN, so they've got the connections here. What if The Rock was his son?
I mean, like, what? Who has the charisma to have been responsible for spawning the Rock? Clearly, one of these alien crew members they met at some point.
The
No one that we know.
Tuskanoxke, whatever fucking race they were. I want to see a pro wrestler try to stand up in John Archer's ready room, where not even Scott Bakula can fully stand up because the ceiling is so low. And then you got some giant ass 7-foot dude, like completely hunched over, like trying to deliver meaningful, dramatic dialogue. The important thing for me while they're doing the tour of the generational ship Enterprise is that there's kids over there, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and this is going to come into play twice because jumping through the plot, Lauren decides that, hey, Archer plan fucking sucks, which we know because real Archer probably came up with it. And I've been thinking about it for like 80 years. We know what we got to do and we're going to do it. And I kind of like that because we just watch Enterprise be space pirates and rip off people and steal their warp core, that them stealing this shit from Enterprise doesn't really bother me.
Right, we're in the dirty part of this adventure
Yeah,
now.
dick
Like,
kicking is
Enterprise has definitely crossed a shall we say a moral event horizon.
Yeah, dick kicking is on the fucking table, and dick kick they do. Parts getting stolen, they steal the warp, they shoot everybody in engineering. Right, we might as well have 7 and 9 down there just shooting people in the fucking main engineering. They steal the Gatorade canisters out of the wall. They get so much mileage out of those fucking set pieces. Those are what, the warp injectors?
Yes, the plasma injectors.
And then off they fly, and they're like, oh shit, they stole our warp shit. And then they're like, all right, well, let's start shooting at them, which is real dangerous. We're going to get in a fucking slap fight out here while we're both pretty fucked up. And then Archer's like, get the transporter. We're going to start stealing all the shit off their ship like this is some
novel space combat idea against another unshielded vessel, right? Just start taking things.
Beam
like,
them into space. Beam my
reach your hand into the engine and pull something out.
It's like that concerning flight where you're just space mugging people with a transporter. They get back in. There's a nice conversation in the brig. And this is where he reveals, like, hey, you were my captain. This is why I'm doing this thing. We had an opportunity to stop this. For whatever reason, which is basically the plot. Because the script needed us not to be any smarter than we were. We tried to take the fucking probe on by ourselves. We were not able to stop it. But I had a second chance, and that was if I just rammed the goddamn thing with the ship. But I was not willing to sacrifice my crew. Which is one thing to say if you've got a Starfleet vessel, but when there's little kids running around the hall playing fucking dodgeball and shit, like,
suddenly it hits different.
Hits real different, right? And that becomes meaningful, especially at the end. The what happens to these guys. We were not willing to ram this thing. The real answer there is ramming this thing and blowing up would have done nothing because they'd send out another fucking probe, right? That's the silliness of this, is that had they successfully stopped that probe, another probe would have been constructed, if not the real Death Star, and Earth would have been caught completely flat-footed.
Or not. I mean, there could have been some discussion of this, of like, we had conceived of the idea, we knew from all of the chatter we heard in advance of the construction of the probe that if this failed, they weren't going to pursue building the bigger one or whatever. And like, that's why this was the plan, was like, if we interrupted this, if we'd show that Earth knew what they were up to, they'd get spooked and decide not to do it.
Absolutely.
Or something.
No, because
they could have found a way to bridge the gap you're talking about through dialogue. They just chose not to.
Everything we've seen out of the Xindi is that they're being puppeted and this shit's going to happen regardless. If they had blown up the probe and they said, Jesus, these guys are even more advanced than we thought, like they're a huge level threat, you know what? Fuck the Death Star. We got to go with space aids after all. Plan Detroit as a go with the full endorsement. Like, and again, this is all knowledge that they have. Archer knew they were back in time in Detroit. Um, so by thwarting the probe, they would have just condemned themselves certainly to death by spaces. I'm not holding this against the episode because time travel sucks, but like, I didn't want to blow up my fucking crew. I held back. As a result, everybody died. My aunt's dead. You're here now. And Archer's like, all right, well, I'm going to let you out of the brig. We're going to work together. And hey, you know what? Here's this other fucking option C we never thought of before was, what if you distract the bad guys while we fly through unmolested and get through the space butthole without causing a problem? And tell you what, if we go through and we get knocked back in time, we'll tell Archer 3, like, hey, we did option 1 and we tried option 3. Those both fail. Like, again, you can keep doing this as many times as you need to. Like, that's the joy of God, what a Baldur's Gate. I saw an article and they said it. So we're all, they call it save scumming.
Oh yeah. Going back to the same spot over and over
reloading
again.
Your save file and playing the save scumming. I really like that.
Yeah, pros playing Iron Man for a reason. You gotta take those L's when they come to you. There is one lower power scene that's more intimate, more interesting. T'Pol meets herself. Paul didn't want to meet anybody, obviously. We talked about how at the beginning of the episode. She just shut herself off. She has no desire for communication. Now she's got a son. You never see him present to Paul, talk to Lorian, ever. Except out in the very beginning. But she decides she can't help herself. She's literally an old version of her is right over there. And she's got questions that version of her can actually answer for her. So she goes over and is like, I need to talk about the crack rock I smoked. And of course she knows that's what's going to happen because she's lived it.
Paul's like,
It's like, if I were her, I would take this chance.
First thing, stop picking all those scabs off, you crackhead, and make sure you start brushing your teeth. That Trillium D has just completely fucked your enamel. You got Trillium teeth now. Move over, Milwaukee mouth or Sheboygan mouth. There's Trillium teeth
Sheboygan teeth. Yeah.
I wanted old T'Pol to see young Trip.
I think it makes sense to not do that. I think far better here is because, old T'Pol, she knows her end is about to come here. And it's like, my Trip is gone. You are not my Trip. My Trip is a different guy who I married and had a kid with and lived with for 15 years as husband and wife. And you're a different man. And I'm not interested in who you are. But the past me, I can help her, right? Like, I know what's happening here. She's already got the tea poured. She knows what conversation's about to happen. And is like, yeah, you're not getting better, honey. You will always have emotions from this point forward. And you will have to learn to live with them.
You will always want to do crack for the rest of your life.
And that's going to be something you grow older with and are able to deal with, obviously. And then gives her some relationship advice. Like, Trip is a good guy. He is somebody you can be emotionally vulnerable with. And yeah, I know I probably wouldn't have necessarily been with him if I wasn't literally stuck with him. But now, because of that, I realized how much I grew because of him. And I can offer you that wisdom now. Like, that this was a good idea.
I like the end advice she has, which is, well, how do I know? And this and that, I think I like him, but I'm not sure. And then she's like, there's human expression. The heart knows, or something to that extent.
Follow your heart. Yeah.
Follow your heart. Feel things out. I believe in the best. It's a great scene T'Pol has with herself and the camera trick to put them both on the screen at the same time. Looks good. She also gives her some new fucking illegal future tech. So they've got Heisenberg compensators or whatever the fuck it is. But Joe, I propose to you this. She could have the scene with Trip, but she has a great scene with herself. Why not both? All right. She has a scene with herself. Great. I don't know what to cut out of this, but she goes, you know what? Ask Trip to come over. Trip comes over, sees her. She cries, embraces him, and says, For whatever gentle, soft touch advice she gave herself about creeping around, she goes, she needs you. We need you. You do everything in your power to wife that girl up. You don't take no for an answer because she wants you like crazy. And God damn it, be a man, Trip. It's good seeing you one last
Yeah.
time. Let me die in your arms. Give me that. And you can sit there and
Ooh.
you eat.
Okay, I've converted over to this
Mhm.
now. You got me with that.
You're not going to give me fucking Archer going back in time or forward in time and bringing back future impending doom from Twilight and having that. Give me Trip knowing for certain it's his fate to marry T'Pol at all costs. And that is that.
And Paul's the one who told him.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, you heard it from her herself,
Mm-hmm.
who's like, there's things she's going through. She can't tell you right now, but she's going to need to eventually. And when she does, you are the only person that can
You know
help
what
her.
else?
You are the only person who won't take advantage of her. You have to be there.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, you've
Yeah.
got some dark shit going on. You guys need listen to Grandma. Also, you got time for a quickie before I croak?
Yeah, I'm gonna turn to dust.
We're
gonna go like a Jedi.
Yeah, just force
like a
out.
Jedi.
Just a pile of old lady clothes on the floor by the time he's done with her.
Will be the second weirdest sexual circumstance you've been in, Trip. I know you.
Yeah.
I know what happened with the hand, baby. Can't hide that shit from me. Let's go.
Plus, whatever may or may not have happened with Reptile off camera, like you've been into some weird stuff, man. Don't front.
They go in. They launch their caper.
Well, hold
which
on.
is
There's one good scene worth mentioning, and it's Hoshi and Mayweather, whom
you may
have
that was earlier
forgotten
in the
exist
episode. Yeah,
because they're only special guests at this point. There's a lot of cool what if here, and I always like that. Like Phlox has fucked 80% of the crew and just procreated a fucking Borg, basically.
His wife. Did you hear what his wife was? It's the Israeli hottie on the Makos.
Corporal Mackenzie.
No, Corporal Mackenzie is who Travis winds up with. So Travis winds up with blonde girl with see-through shirt.
Nice
And
pick.
Phlox winds up with the Israeli hottie. So
no uglies in Makos, man.
no,
it's a very superficial organization.
They're Marines, but they gotta look good.
Yeah, no Corporal Hayes in here, which, fine, that's fine. The important part of that little conversation as to everybody's future is the truth gets spoken, which we all know. I don't need the Starship Enterprise of the future to tell me, and that's the episode title for this, which is Nobody Wants Reed.
I was actually appropriate, character beat. Like the guy who's kind of a weirdo creep talked about how he slept around. He's the dude that winds up striking out with all the ladies. Yeah.
Nobody Wants Reed.
Yeah, it seems right.
I thought he was going to be like, oh no, apparently I don't have a chance because turns out my third time I get bolted to the hull, I actually die. Third time's a charm. So I must admit, on hearing this and even speaking about my death on the hull, now I'm getting a little bit of an erection. So happy story for all, I suppose. But yeah, nobody wants his skeevy little ass. And then later in the episode, they leave, he turns his attention on some, crew member Blondie, and he's like, Eye of the Predator. Come here, I will correct this error.
Target locked. Just
the space mugging.
So
the tractor beam. Enterprise has a tractor beam, which is cool.
They use it to basically heave home into the space vortex after they get fucked up by the thugs.
They do this thing where they fly in one on top of the other and surprise, I'm multiple man. We split apart. Again, it could have just been the first Enterprise just flying in fuck you guys, shooting on the bird, shooting some torpedoes off, and then flying off, making the coast clear while Enterprise goes in unmolested. But they do this Prometheus hull split trick where there's a war or some sort of echo signature, and they're like, no, there's two of us.
Yeah, they get cute.
One of us has red phasers, the other one has
blue phasers,
which now it's a GI Joe, so cool. Our Enterprise gets fucked up enough where they're like, all right, grab him with the tractor beam and just yeet him through the butthole.
Just go, get out of here. We'll hold them off. And, classic. What happened in their last stand because they don't come back through the
Final
butthole?
line of my notes is those kids! Exclamation mark. You just showed me you got a fucking ship full of women and children and grandmas and fucking art classes and knickknacks. Like it's a cool ending because they stick around for 5 hours waiting. And they're like, they probably died, but what if, like, maybe they're going to show up later, which would be hella cool if. I mean, this is the ship to fucking pick up. Give me a part 2 on these guys. It's always like, there's 2 of us now. There's the Prometheus. Not the Prometheus. What was it called? The Voyager, other Equinox. No, but like, hey, now there's 2 ships. There's been 1 ship for a long time. The Pegasus, the Equinox. Like, don't always have to kill the other fucking ship. I'd love if this ship shows up later on and like fucking saves the day somehow. But then they're like, or maybe temporal mechanics, like by us getting through here, they don't exist anymore, and that's gone. And that's kind of it's always a sad ending too. It's not quite to the level of what were the T-1000 clones of Voyager with fucking Potsy killing everybody miserably.
Oh yeah, Potsy is Jigsaw.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one where Operation Annihilation or something like that. Was the second episode after Demon of the Silver People,
right,
where it's just you get to watch everyone die hideously.
All of your thoughts and dreams and hopes and sacrifices all mean nothing. I mean, it does mean something because they complete the mission, but it's like, you are erased from history. Congratulations.
Well, that is, to link us back to our Strange New World discussion, I think that was a really compelling part of the dialogue between Lon and Kirk, is that Kirk understands that the consequences of assisting Lon is that he no longer exists. There will be a version of him that exists. It will not be him. It will not be his experiences. He, for all intents and purposes, dies.
I'm really happy we watched that or I watched at least that episode before I watched this episode, because there are a lot of parallels, and that is if we're successful, this guy doesn't acknowledge it. This doesn't get discussed until at the very end. They don't actually go through, is that by changing history, you won't exist anymore. But the comfort in these sci-fi stories is always that we're going to destroy your timeline, but now that you've seen my timeline, this is the good timeline. And kudos to Kirk, whoever the fucking actor is, like, his entire world changed. It's such a strong emotional impact. He's like, yeah, fuck you, listen. Yeah, you've got Earth, but we're doing pretty well. We're still in the fight. I got a can-do attitude, and I'm not helping you with this until I find out Sam's alive. My brother is...
Yeah.
Whoa, wait, hold on. From that point, you see him, like, take his whole universe, crumple it up, and fucking throw it in the trash. I'm like, if one of us is living, it's yours, because my brother's alive. And also, yeah, sunsets are pretty fucking rad. Sunsets, hot dogs, and my brother's alive? Sign me up.
What are we signing up to watch as far as Enterprise is concerned next week?
Well, it's season 3. Oops, it's all bangers. So whatever it is, we know it's going to be good. We're going to be going into season 3, episode 22, The Council. Good. give me primetime Degra, man. Please tell me Degra survives this fucking season 3, that he gets to kill some fucking reptilians, and that somehow Degra gets a seat at the Federation table, because I love this fucking guy. Written by Manny Koto. All right. This is going to be The Council. David Livingston's in there too. Archer confronts the Xindi Council.
That's it. That's all you get. This thing is dense. It's like, why try to summarize it? You just have to watch it.
The only question is how many head wounds will Archer get this time around?
This is almost... I say almost... this is a 3-part season finale. Really. This is just one long story between this countdown and 0 hour, which was the last episode of the season. So we're almost there. We have almost reached our destination, and we're ramping up, man. We're gonna have a good time.
I would love to know, I would like to see convention interview footage, or if there's podcasts or whatever, like the moment where the cast realized, like, okay, after 2 years of fucking garbage, like, this is actually getting legit good. Like, wow, where am I working at?
They probably didn't know until they watched it, right?
Think you
Like,
gotta understand it when you start seeing these fucking scripts, and it's like, okay, the fucking this episode is not about my dog peeing on a tree.
yeah. No, I would agree that probably they started to understand, but they probably really knew once they started seeing the finished products, and it was like, okay, we did a better
I
job
mean,
this
just getting
time, you
into the
know?
hot and heavy of, like, by this point in the season, like, this is, or I don't know, maybe it's just on paper these are ridiculous things happening, and it's not until you're actually in there recording, you're like, all right, this is, I don't know. If anybody out there has seen any discussion from the cast about getting into these badass parts of season 3 and really seeing the series congeal, and like at what point they knew I'd be interested in hearing those stories. Maybe Mike Sussman might have some more Memory Alpha odd edits here with his own personal notes.
Come on, Mike, you know you need to.
He might
We're rooting for
even
you.
be listening to us right now. Who knows? If you're fucking editing Memory Alpha for Enterprise episodes, why not listen to a podcast?